And I learned to watch film not just as a defensive line coach, but as a linebacker coach. And then slowly starting to learn the back end on the defensive backs and just kind of learning how to pair coverages with blitzes. Because like going back to like Cerritos High School when I was calling the defense, my kids to this day who played for me know what my favorite call is. It's send everybody and cover zero. And you can't do that at the college level. You do it once in a while. You can't do that every play. So I learned how to game plan.
Welcome to Inside the Headset, presented by Coach Com. Each episode pulls back the curtain on the coaching profession, spotlighting voices from every level of the game and offering lessons and insights for your own path. But first, a word from Coach Com.
Deuce left, check with me. If they're in quarters match, we're going to Pittsburgh or Ohio.
They're in zero.
Let's go. Hippo, Seattle, wide choice. If we call the protection right, it's 6.
When a play call is the difference between winning and losing, your headset choice could be your most important decision. When the call counts, CoachCom is the only choice for clear, dependable communication. Visit CoachCom.com for more info.
We got it, guys. Good job.
Follow Inside the Headset on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel for exclusive content. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like and leave a review. It really helps others discover the show. We drop new episodes each week, so hit that follow button and never miss a moment. Now, let's get inside the headset.
Coach, what's happening, man? How we doing?
What's good, Mario? Good to see you, brother.
Yeah, good to see
Always
you.
Good
man.
to talk to you.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Well, obviously we've had tons of conversations all over the place, text messages, Instagram, Twitter, all that kind of stuff. But, you know, we never just really sat down and talked your career. So I'm excited about that. So let's go ahead and dive in. When did you know you want to be a part of this great profession?
So I grew up, my dad coached me in junior All-American football out here in Cali. I always wanted to be around the game. And then before I got married, like the year before I got married, I had a buddy who needed freshman coaches. So it was in Santiago and Garden Grove, and I got the bug, man, like just kind of being out there. So back in 2013 is when I think I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to be a football coach.
And so basically he asked you volunteered to kind of go help out, and you just realized that, hey man, this is pretty nice.
Yeah, it was. So I played like the adult league softball with him. So it was like a friend through a friend, and he was a varsity coach at the high school, and I was like, oh, do you guys ever need coaches? Like I played football, like I could coach. And he was like, yeah, come on down. And it was freshman football, and man, I knew I wanted to be a coach, but I learned very quickly how much goes into coaching.
Right.
Very.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? It's kind of how you started that, because I definitely my first job was at the high school level. Had another break part of my job where I would coach at the middle school, and it was just like, man, I'm ready. I can do this. And you really realize that, man, these kids don't care about what type of offense or defense. They're trying to learn how to put their pads on. They're trying to get a proper stance for the first time. Coach, how does this chin strap thing work? And, you really realize that kind of early on when you're messing with some of those freshmen who've never played football before, or some of these guys who are just really dipping their toe in the water. And at first you're a little bit like, oh, man, it's not what I expected. And then by the end of it, you're like, man, I can't get enough of this. And so, you mentioned that you were like, oh, yeah, I played. I should be able to coach. How quickly did you realize it was much more to it than, the little bit that you had already knew?
Dude, game one, because I got to call the offense. And so I was an O-line coach, and like I helped with quarterbacks. And I was like, you know what? We're going to run a play-action pop pass. They're going to think we're going to run the ball first play of the game. We're going to throw it over the top. I called the play, and in the middle of the play, my quarterback's dropping back. And I'm like, I forgot to teach the O-line how to block. I was so focused on installing the play and calling the play that like my O-line was kind of just out there like eyes closed looking for the light switch.
Right. Yeah. That's,
so I was like, oh, a little bit more than that.
Yeah. No doubt you're getting that, the NCAA and the Madden games and all that kind of stuff, that part of it, the schematics, and you kind of realize that, there's some fundamentals, there's some important parts that we got to lay the foundation on. And so, I have on record your first, job in 2015. Was this same one that you're referring to in 13? Was this Peninsula High School?
No, so that was Santiago.
Okay.
My wife and I joke about like my first job was when we first got married. So like my first job, and it's funny enough, the person who gave me my first varsity job was Mike Christensen.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I remember interviewing with him just to kind of any role I could get because I had just moved out into the area, and he had kind of talked about the AFCA, and I knew what the AFCA was. Like my dad had the coach's Bible, like back in the day, like when they had the big old book of all the plays and everything on it.
Right.
So I remember looking through that, and I remember him talking about it. But no, Peninsula was my first like varsity job.
So how did that come about? How did you got the bug? You realized you wanted to really do this thing. How did you go about getting that first opportunity?
So out here in California, I don't know how it works in other states, but CIF Southern section has a website where like coaches wanted. So if you go up there and it's going to want ads, and Coach Christensen had posted something, and I emailed him, and he had me come up for just to talk and kind of showed me around the school. And I just wanted to learn. I wanted to get better and be a better coach and kind of take a shot at varsity. And he offered me the job and was there with him.
There you go. Now, in those first 2 years, obviously now it's a little, maybe I'm assuming here, a little more structured than what you had as in that freshman opportunity that you first did there.
Oh yeah.
What was the big leap for you in regards to those first couple of years where you kind of on the varsity, you got linemen that are depending on you for Friday nights to coach them up. You're not in a position to be calling plays, so now you can focus a little bit more on that foundational and technical type of stuff. What was that like for you as a coach to adjust and learn and just make sure you were prepared to give your best to those young men?
Well, I learned real quick that it takes a lot to do it because like you've spoken to Mike before, like he has a very high standard of what he wants and how he wants it done, but he's also willing to teach. So I learned really, I think it was like our fall camp, and I personally, like, I wasn't keeping up with teaching my guys what they needed to be taught. And I remember Mike pulled me aside and was like, "Hey man, this isn't freshman football. Like these games count.
Right.
We gotta kind of get going. You gotta take it a little bit more seriously." And then from that moment on, I worked hard, but I was constantly learning. And I think Mike gave me a great opportunity, but I don't think I was ready for a varsity job at that point.
So when you had that conversation, right, and then I appreciate you kind of been transparent there, and just been open because sometimes you're so close to that situation where you don't speak about it, right? It was all candies and roses. We were good. I did a great job and all that stuff. But the reality of it is man, sometimes especially as a young coach, you're getting your feet wet. You think you know everything. You realize you don't know much of anything. Sometimes you're drowning a little bit, depending on how many roles you got. And then you have a conversation like that. Your head coach comes and chews your tail out. Your offensive coordinator, defense coordinator comes and chews you out. How did you respond? What was kind of that learning lesson right there when you kind of got pulled off and called out right there?
I think we got better. Like I took the preparation a little bit more seriously. And I just focused on more of the little things. And I just remembered how I was coached, growing up from my dad coaching me through high school. And I remember what worked for me and what didn't work for me as a coach. So I just kind of started to kind of mold that together. And I started to see a little bit of results, but like I was an offensive line coach with 6 offensive linemen. Like it was, I was scared because like, I was like, okay, well, if one of them goes down, I'm down to 5. And like, so it was just kind of learning how to manage that and like load manage them that way. But yeah, that was kind of just working harder. Like that's how I was raised.
Right. Is
okay. Hey, if you're not doing enough, you got to do more, and you got to kind of dig deep and figure it out and work harder.
There you go. So you spent 2 years there at Cerritos, Peninsula, and I don't know exactly where that's located, but in 2017, you have another opportunity there at Cerritos at this point in time as a special teams coordinator, defense coordinator for the freshman and sophomore. How did that come about, and how did you approach that job now that you've been able to settle in and have a full-time varsity job, kind of got kicked in the rear to kind of get going and be in that place a little bit. How did you approach that job? It was maybe differently than that first full-time.
So the way I got to Cerritos, same thing, CIF, right? I had coached Pop Warner for a year between those two. But I learned from Mike Christensen. I tried to take everything from something, and Mike was a big kind of influence early in my career.
Yeah.
You need to value yourself, and know what you're worth. And I went into that Cerritos interview, and I interviewed pretty well, well enough to get the job. And I basically told him, like, hey, I have a wife. I need a full-time job if I'm going to be coming down here every day. And like, I'm still working at Cerritos High School as what's called a student intervention assistant. And I ended up coaching there for the year, and I got a coordinator role as a special teams guy, which I think they just gave it to me because like they needed somebody to run specials. And like, I love those two. Like, we had co-head coaches, Barry Thomas and Dan Mesa, who are great, still really good friends of mine to this day. And I think they just like, were like, well, you care. You care enough about these kids that you want to do a good job. So here, like, let's go. So I felt like I wore a lot of hats there. I was varsity O-line, special teams coordinator. On the frost-off level, I was the defensive coordinator, so I was coaching Thursdays and Fridays with the current head coach at Cerritos High School, DeMel Franklin, like, before he became the head coach. Like, it was coaching kids who were not necessarily kids who grew up playing football.
Yeah.
But they just wanted to play. So they had that love, but it was also kind of breaking through because I went to Mater Dei in Santa Ana, and like, you go there and like, you want to play football. Like, it's a yes sir, no sir. And you kind of know what to expect. Every high school job I've had, I'm in like, all right, these guys are brand new.
Right.
So it was a good kind of experience of kind of just slowing it down and coaching.
Yeah. And sometimes those situations, although, I've had a situation like that I coached one of my spots, and it initially was frustrating, and kind of by the end of it, it was extremely rewarding, because we all want to coach 5-star recruits and score a touchdown every single play, but sometimes you can have a little more impact when you watch a guy get over the hurdle of getting a clean release as a receiver, or getting a first pancake block as an offensive lineman, because they're grasping onto what you're teaching them, and it's working, and so it's cool to be able to find some success in that as an individual, especially early in your career, man. It kind of brings you to those grassroots, and you find out real quick if you really want to do it or not. Because I've seen, in that same situation I'm talking about, I've seen some guys say, hey, you know what, I'm going to go sell insurance or, whatever else. Yeah. And so, it really challenges you to really find out if you really want to be in the business or not. And so, obviously I was going to head there, and you kind of beat me to the punch. You were special teams coordinator, offensive line coach, which is a unique combo, right? Because you typically kind of don't have the offensive line too involved in anything other than a field goal, or maybe a couple guys are on the shield or something like that on punt. How did you go and put yourself in a situation that, hey, man, I got a phase of the game. We're starting the game one way or the other. My group is out there. So how did you make sure you were prepared as an individual to serve the special teams?
To be honest, I was drowning. Like, the two roles. So when I got that coordinator role, like I said, I think they trusted me because I cared.
Yeah.
But like, I bought like a shield punt special teams manual thing, and I was trying. Man, I did okay, and I tried. I was not nearly ready to be a coordinator at the high school level.
Yeah.
Like, and it's, looking back on it, like, I'm blessed to have that opportunity, and I was blessed to have somebody trust me enough to do that. Looking back, I probably should have been just an O-line coach, helping out with the shield, helping out with the field goal. But like, I didn't know anything about anything, and I was still learning. So I cared about it, but like, it was also, okay, I don't know how I'm going to fix it. Like, I couldn't make any adjustments at the time because I was still trying to learn too.
Yeah.
So it was hard, man. Like, It was bad. Like we were 1-9, and it was just hard. It was a lot of like trial and error.
Well, you know what? I once again appreciate your transparency there, with the difficulties that you had and obviously the difficulty that you had in the season. So I kind of made mention of being in those situations where it's rough, it's tough, and you see that fork in the road and you either, double down and stick with it or you hit the highway. How as we have young coaches dipping their toe in the profession, trying to figure out if this is something they want to do, and they hit some of these tough spots where it's not always good, man. You're working with a guy that's riding you hard, or you're struggling as a position coach, or you took a job that maybe you weren't prepared for. How did you summon up the strength, the courage to kind of continue to move forward and ultimately hit this next job that we're going to talk about, which is your current job, and just continue to kind of snowball rolls and do better and better.
So we have the Southern California Football Coaches Association out here, and I remember after that season at Cerritos, I was like, I need to get better. Like, if this is something that I want to do, I need to get better. So I go to Glacier clinics every year still, but I'll never forget. I went to that Southern California Football Coaches clinic, and their keynote speaker was from Ohio, and he I'll never forget. He goes, if you want to get better, ask these colleges that are around you if you can just sit in and learn.
Yeah.
He goes, 99% of the time, they're going to be like, yeah, come on in. We want you to learn. Come on. Because he's like, that's what this profession is. And I started to kind of put two and two together with how much of a fraternity coaching is. So I go there, and I honestly, I was like, I'm going to learn everything I can. I'm going to try to be the best offensive line coach I can. I'm going to try to learn more special teams. I want to learn defense, because I was calling the defense at Cerritos for the freshmen. I was like, I love calling defense, so I might want to transition to the defense side. So I remember I hit up Whittier College. This is back in 2018. Whittier College during spring. I hit up Harbor College, which is no longer playing anymore. Cypress High School, because they had a really good O-line coach who I wanted to learn from. And then I hit up Long Beach City. And I just went to those schools and wanted to learn and talk to the coaches and how they kind of got there. And then the second part of what that coach from Ohio said was, see if you could immerse yourself in their culture for a week, like during summer, during spring, fall camp, just to kind of see what it's like and how they prepare and how they go about things. Because if you put yourself at that level, you're more likely to learn, and you're going to see if this is something you really want to do. Yeah. And I'll never forget, all of the coaches were super hospitable when I went through, but I felt the connection with Long Beach. Like it was something about Long Beach City. And my head coach at the time, Brett Peabody, I remember it was all on Twitter, and I texted him saying, hey, can I spend a week in summer with you guys? Like, I'll set up the cones, I'll set up the pads. I just want to be around everything and kind of soak everything in. And he said, yeah. And that's kind of where it all started with the DM on Twitter.
Yeah. There you go. I mean, I the piece that I kind of take away from that is, I don't want to just say this as the guy that does the education at the AFCA, but you were sitting there listening to a keynote guy, talk about some steps that you should take, and it's easy to sit in there and take notes and just, walk out of there and find some cool things. I definitely don't suggest walking into every session and taking every last thing that you can take away from it and trying to apply. That's not what it's for. But you took a little nugget and you ran with it, and ultimately ends up into a DM. And so now I kind of want to talk about how that DM turned into you working that summer to turn into you now, paying your bills for the last 8 years. So just talk to us a little bit about, you sent the DM. I'm assuming you went down for a week, and then what followed?
So I went down for a week. I got there as early as I possibly could. When they got there, I got there. Like when head coach was there, I got in and I was sitting in on meetings. I was just kind of soaking up the environment. And I would go set up cones, set up the bags. I'd sit in on defensive meetings because that's what I really wanted to take away from it at that point. And I worked my tail off. Like, I was going home like just drenched in sweat. Like I was putting my work in, and by the end of it, Coach P was like, "Hey man, I can't pay you this year, but if you want to be like, come on game days and chart plays for us and kind of be around the team and learn, like you're more than what we'd love to have you, because maybe it can turn into something that pays next year."
Right.
So I went home and I do whatever smart coach who's married does, and I talked to my wife, and I was like, "Hey, I'm not going to get paid for this, but this is something I really want to do, and I think I can get paid. I think I can work hard enough to get paid at it." So thankfully, my wife was like, "All right, let's do it." And she still to this day is on my back, making sure I'm good, everything. I wouldn't be where I'm at without my wife. But I ended up saying, "Okay, I'll go a couple days a week." And then a couple days turned into 3 days. And I was like, you know what? The more I show up and the more I show that I'm valuable, the less likely they're going to get rid of me.
Yeah.
And they'll want to pay me. So I went 4 days, and then I asked the question. I was like, "Hey, can I go recruit on Friday night? Am I allowed to go recruit games?" And he's like, "Yeah." So that's kind of where I started to kind of make my mark. Was I was at a game every Friday night, taking notes, meeting kids, building those relationships. And then I was an assistant D-line coach. Like I basically had a great mentor. Brendan Patterson is still to this day one of the best technicians I've ever met when it comes to D-line. And he taught me so much. And honestly, like going out of that 2018 season, I was like, okay, I can do this. I could be at this level.
And so when this season concludes, right? So at that point, you forgoed any other opportunity, right? So you're pretty dedicated to showing up multiple times a week, been there for game days, volunteered to go out and recruit Fridays. I'm only assuming you're impressing these guys, and just with your consistency and hard work. What happens after that season that allows for you to kind of get a more permanent or at least paying role at that point in time?
So after the 2018 season, my Christmas gift from my wife that year was I got sent to my first AFCA conference. I got to my first convention in San Antonio, and just soaking up knowledge, just being I was so overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. Just seeing all these guys from like major schools, and like I didn't know what to do. But just learning from everybody and kind of seeing like, okay, hey, the logo on the shirt, they all started the same place. Like they all love the game just like you do. So I came back and I started going to school, and my dedication to going to school again, my head coach was like, "Hey, I'm gonna be able to give you a stipend this year." So it kind of like started to roll through, and like my stipend was the most money I'd ever been paid to coach football in my life, and I was like, "This is phenomenal!" Like, baby, look how much we're gonna get paid to coach football, like, right. And just taking it more seriously, and I do attribute the convention to kind of making me take this even more seriously and see it as a career.
Yeah.
Just because it was like we went through spring ball, and then I just kept rolling.
And so, after I believe another year, you get promoted to defensive front coordinator. And so, obviously, it's kind of a unique role. But what were you doing in that role that was allowing for you to get acclimated with not just the D line, but also some linebacker play as well?
So I after my first year, I went from assistant D-line to just D-line with Brandon, and I was a recruiting coordinator as well. Just because I was showing up on Friday nights and doing all that and making the relationships. When I got promoted to front coordinator, it was during COVID. So like I only got to enjoy it for a little bit. But what I learned from it, because my defense coordinator at the time was Steve Ruta Flores, and he taught me that you can get out of a lot of trouble if you know the analytics of the game. You won't second guess yourself. Like, he is a huge tendency guy. So I learned how to watch film. And I learned to watch film not just as a defensive line coach, but as a linebacker coach. And then slowly starting to learn the back end on the defensive backs and just kind of learning how to pair coverages with blitzes. Because, like, going back to, like, Cerritos High School when I was calling the defense, my kids to this day who played for me know what my favorite call is. It's send everybody cover zero. And you can't do that at the college level. You do it once in a while. You can't do that every play. So I learned how to game plan, and I learned how to translate my coaching from being a D-line coach to a linebacker coach.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't coach the linebackers, I still had to speak with them. So it was a great learning experience of how to formulate a defense and how to install of anything.
Yeah, no doubt. I think when I was just talking to another coach about this not too long ago, just really the sequential order of, like, watching film as a player, where you just, where am I at? What am I doing?
Yep.
Then you start watching film as a college player. Maybe you become a little bit more aware as a college player of, like, okay, cool, I'm the running back. I got to watch what the nose is doing on this play. I know the interior lineman a little bit. Maybe I know what the ends do. And then you get into college, and then that's when the doors blow off a little bit, in my opinion, because at that point in time, or high school, when you really start dipping your toe in the water and you start to understand what's going on the front, linebacker and defensive back level. And then I think really when you coordinate is when it gets crazy, because now you know all the stuff that can happen. Now, where do you watch? What do you watch as a defensive coordinator? Where are your eyes going to be? And so we were just kind of talking about that sequential, kind of how it lays out and how important those phases are to be able to understand the game to a whole nother level. And so obviously you had this opportunity to kind of, really learn how to watch film, really know what you're looking for, really start pairing fronts and coverages and things together so you're sound. And then with the snap of a finger, you go to the offensive line. You just learned all this defensive play, and you go to the O-line and special teams coordinator. So what was that transition about, and how good was that for you to be able to have that experience, I guess?
So Coach Peabody had wanted me on the offense because, like, I was an offensive line guy, and the way I got in at Long Beach was saying, "I'll coach anything. I'll do whatever you need me to do." So having the opportunity to go back to the offensive side of the ball, because we actually had a coach who was planning on retiring after that season, so I was supposed to learn from him and then kind of go into that role. I was going to be like a third O-line coach. But just, like you said, after learning all that college level defensive everything, right? Now having to learn a very fast paced offensive and, like, having to kind of piece everything together. And it was, for me, it ended up being, I learned the basics, but I wasn't involved with, like, it was a different challenge because I wasn't involved in, like, game planning, or, like, I got to ask questions obviously, but, like, it was more of like, hey, focus on this.
Yeah.
Because you have special teams to do. So I was more of a special teams coordinator than I was an offensive line coach. Like, I was probably about 80-20.
I got you. Okay. And then so after a couple of years kind of doing that, you ultimately end up at the tight ends, but I'm assuming that's your role. You are the tight ends coach there, right?
I am, but so that was last year.
Last year, yeah.
So last year I coached the tight ends. It ended up being about 60-40, specials and tight ends, but we had a couple, and most of the time we could like, okay, hey, I want you to go with the receivers right now on this day because, like, I need you to learn this release because you're in the slot this week. Mm-hmm. So it was more stuff like that. But no, the tight ends was cool because, like, every offensive lineman thinks they can play tight end. Like, you ask any O lineman from the dawn of time, they think they can play tight end. And so it was different. And it was one of the things where I talking about learning from coaches, right? We went out to South Carolina. My wife has family in South Carolina. I learned from Danny Lewis at Citadel because I was like, he coaches tight ends. I'm going to go try to learn tight ends. Like, I need to make sure that I'm prepared. because I always kind of look back in my start of my career of getting a job that I wasn't prepared for. So I wanted to be as prepared as possible going into that. And Coach Lewis gave me a tremendous amount of knowledge and just about football and life. And I feel like I'm like if anybody asks me, I can coach the box.
Yeah, for sure.
Backs, O-line, tight ends, D-line, linebackers.
Well, anybody kind of listen to the story, kind of see, you show up as a unpaid guy that's just willing to come and work hard, and every year you get a little bit more responsibility, got a little bit more influence on what's happening on Saturday. And then, most recently you were named as the associate head coach / special teams coordinator there, which is, a phenomenal promotion. So congratulations on that. I don't know if we spoke since that point in time. What would you attribute to this kind of, constant promotion, constant, move forward within that job path? What would you attribute that to?
A few things. I have a very strong support system at home. You know what I mean? Like I have a wife and kids who are all in and who are there for me and kind of help me with whatever I need, and like are just there for me, and they are a football family. And I think that above anything has kind of helped me climb, but also motivate me as well to just work hard. Like I want my kids to be able to look and go, oh, whenever dad works, he works as hard as he possibly can. And then I think God definitely hit. I've been put in places that in like certain situations where like it's you can only attribute it to God blessing me that way and kind of saying like, hey, I know you want this, but you need to be here. I need you here, kind of thing. So I attribute my faith to it as well. Absolutely.
Now, I know something that you worked very hard on, trying to be a part of multiple years, trying to be crack into the 35 and 35, and you had the opportunity to be, represent the JUCO from that standpoint. This past year, talk about your experience and why you would encourage others to apply to this program.
Man, like you said, I have tried and I tried and I tried. I think my first year I applied for was 2019, or no, the year after 2019 when I learned about it, after my first convention. And I think every coach should go for it, because like, it's not just like, cause I've been transparent the entire time. Like, you look at it and you're like, man, how am I going to compete with Brian Hartline? You know what I mean? Like, how are you going to, like, as like a JUCO coach, like, how am I going to compete with guys who are at the Power 5 level, Power 4 level, Group of 5, like D2? Like, how am I going to compete with that? And I would get discouraged, but I think that the best thing I can tell a coach who wants to apply is if you know what you're about when it comes to coaching, if you know what you do and how you service young men in this profession, you need to go for it. Because at the end of the day, we're all football coaches. Doesn't matter the level, high school, Pop Warner, junior college, like major universities. Like, it is such a, I don't even know how to explain it, man. Cause I still can't believe I got it. Like, I still can't believe I got picked for it, because it's such an honor. But I think that coaches who apply for it, and like I tell every coach who is under the age of 35, you need to do it. No matter what, like, just try, because you see where you're at. You see where you're at as a coach, and you see that, okay, hey, I may not get it this year, but what can I get better on? And that's all we want to do as coaches, is get better.
That's right.
And it is the single, like, I try to talk about it every chance I get. Like, just the experience to coach. Like, I still talk to coaches who are in my class. I check in, like Marco Regaldo, like, he was in my class last year. Him and I chop it up. Like, I'm fortunate enough to have friends who were in the classes before, like Doug Deacon, AJ Stewart, Juice Griffin. Like, they've become friends, and I've been able to like before I even got it, it was they're like-minded people because they care about the game, they care about their players, and they want to get better. And I think if you are those three things, you should apply for it every chance you get until you get it.
There you go. Well, we appreciate kind of hearing that feedback, man. It's always positive to hear, great experiences with the program. And I've enjoyed it, man. I actually, I know you from Long Beach City College. I'm going to have to get used to it if you ever go anywhere else. But I didn't know the story. I didn't realize, everything that kind of happened within that time frame, man. So you keep chopping wood, keep helping that program out. We'll be cheering you on from here, and look forward to seeing you in Charlotte, okay?
Appreciate it. I'm looking forward to being out there, brother. All
right, man. Good talking to you.
CoachComm has been delivering tough headsets for tough teams for more than 31 years. It's why 97% of FBS teams and thousands of high schools across the country rely on CoachComm. Get the best for your team. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm on wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.